Okay, sorry for the delay, but these day classes go as soon as when I'm available. So let's continue with the Maamar. Hopefully, we'll finish the Maamar now. So yesterday we explained in the Maamar about Amalek that Amalek obviously is in every generation, and Amalek attacks the Jewish people as they leave Mitzrayim. And we learned that there's two levels of leaving Mitzrayim. There's two levels. There's leaving Mitzrayim, and then there's coming into the land of plenty, which is Eretz Yisrael. It's not the same thing. Leaving Mitzrayim is leaving the confinement, and then avoided this idea of iskafya. And coming into Eretz Yisrael, the land of Harchava, is the idea of ishapcha transformation. Now, so the Rebbe continues, V'hine, Hashem Yetzias Mitzrayim. The how you base elu. We said there's two levels: the levels of iskafya, ishapcha, restraining yourself and transforming yourself, leaving Mitzrayim and going into the land of plenty. At first, you go to what's, so to say, lighter, or if you want to call it easier. I don't know if it's easier, but it's lighter, which is to iskafya, to restrain yourself, meaning you still have, you like the beinoni, you're still struggling, but you're in control specifically of your machshav dibur ma'aseh, your speech, thought and action. And then a kovid is more difficult or more elevated avodah of ishapcha transformation. It's not like you have the Emunah, that you've been able to move the Emunah throughout your body to take control, to make sure that you're restraining and acting on as you according to what the Torah wants. But actually, you could have the harchava broader than the yud, which is a limitation. Like we said before, at first the Jewish people, once they left Egypt, so in Mitzrayim we said they had just Emunah, but it was just deep in the heart. It wasn't able to spread throughout the body. When they left Mitzrayim, they were able to accomplish that. Now it took over, that it was in control, i.e., the person is in control of their avodah Hashem, specifically in the three levushim of machshav dibur ma'aseh, v'achakach bala matav shasapcha. And when we enter the land, it's transformation. The Eretz Archava, the land of plenty. Adar zahu b'avodah sa'adam, so too in the person shavodah b'chinas iskafya. That we start with iskafya, you start with restraining yourself, and from restraining yourself, you reach the higher level of transforming yourself. Then no longer is it a struggle. To the feel it, first you're just in the word kafir, you're forcing yourself, submitting your will to Hashem's will. Then you can reach the level of the tzaddik, was not that that you have desires, you have wants, but you conform and you control your wants to what Hashem wants, which is the avodah iskafya. You actually reach a level of ma'as bara. You have no interest in that negative. You're disgusted by anything negative, which is the avodah, of course, of the tzaddik. First you reach, he says, first you reach a level where you're ma'as bara. It's not 100%, like there's the different levels of tzaddik. Until you mamish reach the highest level, where you absolutely have nothing to do with bad. Until you mamish are absolutely, totally have nothing to do with bad. He uses the word ma'os, which is disgusted with that. That's like we said before we quoted the Alter Rebbe's idea that he explains in the Kutei Torah, that you're following from the back. And the back is the avodah of iskafya, the back is the avodah of the beinoni, and then through the transformation until you reach the highest level of tachlis, ma'os v'rav, tachlis, the highest level of being disgusted by negative, till you reach the level where you're face to face, you're not following from behind, from the back. Until like we reached the level of Matan Torah, where Hashem Mamish spoke and communicated and revealed himself to each one and every individual Jew. So just like we have the level, these are all the levels in avodah Hashem, where a person's taking their journey through the 42 journeys in the Midbar until you reach the land of plenty. And there was an idea of that, so to say, in Matan Torah. But for just like you have a positive, you have the negative forces. And according to almost every level of the positive force, there's a voice of the negative. Just like this, what's called the iskafya, you're following Hashem from behind in a holy way. And eventually you come, you transform it to the face through the ishapcha transformation. Adar says so too. This is what we call the back of the negative forces, the forces of the other side. That over there it's holding you back. Stay in an avodah of acharayim, don't be an avodah panim. It wants the person to stay in avodah of acharayim. What does this mean? To stay in the avodah of behind. That's Amalek. We know it says Malashinu Amalek is restraining. Malika is in the way they sacrifice the bird sacrifices in the Beis Hamikdash. So a chicken today or a bird that is kosher, we slaughter it from the front of the neck. But in the Beis Hamikdash, by the carbon, it was Malika. Malika is the separating the neck from the body from the back of the neck. So Amalek means from the back, like the back of the neck. Shinyanihu, what is he trying to do? Which in Malika is to separate, but to separate from the back of the neck. He wants to separate what you've resolved in your mind to how you feel it in your body. He doesn't want that Emunah. The point of Emunah that we said is in the heart, or even if it's in the mind that you understand it, but it shouldn't be felt in the rest of the body. You shouldn't be able to internalize it. He takes the nechasham, the weak people, from behind. Why? Why from behind? When a person is in avodah, where you're serving Hashem, like the idea of which we said before is iskafya, you're not face to face. That's where Amalek hits you. Why? Because you haven't transformed yourself. You're following, you're submitting, you're chaniyah, which is iskafya. And that's where Amalek hits a person. Why? Now we answer the question, why does Amalek hit you? It's when a person's already left Egypt, which we said that Egypt itself, as a person just has the Emunah in the Nekudah Salev, in the point of your heart, you can't, like the Jewish people were overwhelmed in the Gullus, they couldn't feel it. You go out of Mitzrayim, you start to be able to bring it into your body, to be able to feel it, at least on the level of iskafya. When you're leaving Mitzrayim, you're starting that avodah. That's where they start the battle. They're not battling against the point of the Yud, of the Nekudah, the Pintel Yid that's in you. They're not trying to eradicate that. That's not something that they feel they can do, not something that they're interested in doing. When the person's on the path of transformation from iskafya to ishapcha, to transform themselves to the land of plenty, they say, whoa, and they attack the Jewish people. Because the person's still vulnerable. Because iskafya means you're restraining yourself. You have desires, you have wants, you want to give in to the body's desires and wants, but you're in a moment of self-control. Self-control demands a lot of discipline and a lot of focus, and that's where he hits you. In that moment where you're not transformed yet. That's where Amalek tries to disconnect. Your mind is there. It's not just in the pintel in your heart. It's in your mind. You understand you have to do it. This is the avodah that you want to do. You're there mentally. Amalek says, no, never mind that. Let's separate what your mind understands, how your body feels. Don't act on it. It's brought down in the tractate of Orlis and Mishnayos, when we talk about that there's 248 limbs of the body, in the head themselves there's different limbs in the head itself. Amalek knows his master. He's not saying, I don't know there's a God. He says, I know there's a God, I don't care. He intentionally rebels against Hashem. You can know your Hashem. It's in your mind. Your mind is fine. It's not that you're lacking understanding. There's no argument to have with the person. You argue with the person when the person is not understanding or not agreeing. The person understands, the person agrees. Amalek says, so what? Don't act on it. Don't let it penetrate the rest of your body, your emotions. He rebels intentionally. What you know shouldn't penetrate your body. You shouldn't act on it. You shouldn't feel with it. You shouldn't run with it. The Rebbe continues, the Bedakas. So generally, we could say, stopping here, that Amalek says, don't get emotionally involved at all. Don't feel godliness. The Rebbe says even on a more refined level. The what does it mean to know your master and intentionally rebel against him? Amalek will attack a person, even the person who's holding iskafya. You have control of your body in a way of kniya, you are submitting yourself to Hashem. But he says, don't go further. Why do you have to have ishapcha? Why do you have to transform yourself? Everything you're doing is right. You serve Hashem. You wake up in the morning. You go to minyan. You go to mikveh. You do everything you're supposed to do. Okay, you know you have to do it. You want to be connected. You made a decision. That's fine. Why do you have to transform yourself? Why do you have to go to the land of plenty? And that's also why he meets after we left Egypt. It means after left Egypt means you're ready in the level of iskafya, of restraining yourself. Why do you have to go to ishapcha? Because the Rebbe says that because we have all the miracles of Egypt and we have all the miracles of the splitting of the Red Sea, a person should have right away been in a moment of in a mode of transformation. Why didn't we immediately go to Eretz Yisrael? And the Rebbe says the very fact that you don't transform yourself, that's the idea that's a rebellious idea. The idea that you're not ready to transform yourself, you're not able to transform yourself. In the Bidakas, we're not talking about an absolute level of rebellion, but the Rebbe calls it Bidakas, that's a merida. So here the Rebbe is elevating the argument of Amalek in a deep avodah level. We're talking about a person's already reached the level of iskafya, that's a high level. I mean, not all of us are there. But nevertheless, you're not ready to transform yourself. And that's itself a merida. Why not? You say a person who stands and makes any motion with their hand in front of the king, it's a rebellious. He's not arguing this is the king. But just to make any kind of self-expression is a merida b'malchus. The very fact that you haven't transformed yourself is a merida b'malchus, is a rebellious act. Excuse me. You only just moved your hand is how merida b'malchus because you're standing in front of the king. Meaning that because the point is that by moving your hand, you have an expression. There should be no self-expression in front of the king. This is what we struggle with on a variety of levels, on the full spectrum. But he's on every level of a person. A person may think, I'm already holding this coffee, I'm not dealing with Amalek. Rebbe says, no, you are dealing with Amalek. If you haven't reached the land of plenty and you haven't transformed yourself, that's Amalek is holding you back. Or at least you have to examine if Amalek is holding you back. This is the battle we have daily with Amalek. God has anything that you have in Kedusha, you have in Tumah, in impurity. And in order for a person to have freedom of choice, when you choose the right choice, all the way to the full spectrum, all the way to ishapcha, so then you're able to overcome the Amalek and transform yourself to be in a level face to face. Instead of being a Amalek which disconnects the head from the body, in a way of ishapcha, your mind has been transformed, but your body is still just submitting itself. It's not transformed. But the fact, if you override Amalek, then you can get to the land of plenty. The premise of the most internal relationship with Hashem. That's why Yisrael comes after we win Amalek. The Mashmu Shama, what did he hear? It says he heard Kriyas Yamsuf Mechamas Amalek. He heard that the splitting of the Red Sea and the battle of Amalek. By day bias Yisrael, when he comes and realizes that we beat Amalek, we beat this war, then comes Matan Torah, which is panim mepanim. In Matan Torah, who anecha v'alikecha, I'm Hashem your Lord. A person reaches panim mepanim that it's revealed that what is the permeate of every yid, what's the sinews of every yid is Yud Kevavka, is Hashem. Here the Rebbe says it's not that you run away from Amalek, you transform Amalek. itself. Because the Gemara teaches us that Bnei Banim Shel Haman Lam the Torah. We know that Haman didn't disappear. The descendants of Haman teach Torah in Bnei Brak. The Haman ben Hamidas Hagogi Harihaya Mizaria Amalek Asa. He's a descendant of Amalek and Asa of Yitzchak Avinu. Can we forge Betargum Sheni in the Megillas Esther? Or can we forge by Dirshim Ben Yimzah? We know clearly that Haman is a descendant of Amalek, a descendant of Asa. And therefore we transform all that negative. When the Bnei Banim, when the descendants of Amalek, the descendants of Haman are teaching Torah B'Ram. The Pari should send the people. It's not just that we run away from Pari, the Pari himself, Pari Hikrit. Pari himself brings us closer. He himself comes closer to Hashem. But again, this is a short mind. The ideas are short, not elaborated. These are ideas that can be discussed in much more detail, but we're learning a few short Maamarim to get into the spirit of Amalek, into the spirit of Zachar, and hopefully in the spirit of Purim next week. Like this, we could erase the negative of Amalek until we mamish reach the total eradication of Amalek. The current mamish should be speeding at times. The Oz Shalish mitzvahs Nistavi Yisrael b'shas Knisas and Aris. We know the Jewish people had three things they had to deal with when they came into Eretz Yisrael. First, they had to have a melech, which was at the time Shaul. And then after they had Shaul, became king. He was told by Shmuel, like we read in this week's Haftorah, to destroy the descendants of Amalek. And then afterwards, you have lived in this base of Bechira. So to be B'Shleim Kodesh Bar Kodesh Revis Mashiach Tzedkenim Karmam Mishmam Okay, a short minor, beautiful minor. Baruch Hashem, we got through it. And that we're able to complete it this week. And Hashem, maybe we'll do something in the next few days. Otherwise, we will see next week what Maamar we're learning.